Delaware isn't alone in navigating a period of rapid transformation, driven by political, geopolitical, technological, and environmental forces. These shifts are reshaping how consumers spend, businesses operate, and how leaders plan for the future. Joining me at the table are Rodger Levenson of WSFS Bank and Chip Rossi, recently retired from Bank of America. As executives of companies with deep ties to Delaware's community, they will share how they're responding to demographic changes and an inflationary economy. They will also offer strategies for turning disruption into opportunity. Let's get into it. We are back for another episode of the Delaware State Chamber of Commerce's podcast, which is now called the Delaware Deep Dive. I'm Kelly Basil, COO of the State Chamber. We recently released a report called The Trends Shaping Delaware's Future that explored key societal and demographic shifts and provided an assessment of Delaware's competitiveness, both its strengths and its opportunities. And there's a lot of really interesting information in the report about who Delaware has been, its current makeup, and based on that information, projections of where Delaware is headed over the next decade. Some of it, I think, calls for further exploration and hashing out so that we can really understand how to nurture our strengths and tackle our opportunities. And a great place to start is here. So I'm grateful to have Chip Rossi, Delaware Market President at Bank of America, and Rodger Levenson, Chairman, President, and CEO of WSFS Bank, with me for this conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Well, before we jump in, just in case our listeners don't know who you both are, I'd love to give you each an opportunity to just share who you are, what you do, and all that fun stuff. So, Rodger, why don't you go first?
Sure. Well, again, thank you for having me. So Rodger Levenson, CEO of WSFS. Been with WSFS coming up on 19 years, almost 40 years in banking in this region, and have been the CEO for the last, this is my 7th year. Live here in Wilmington with my wife and 2 kids.
And Chip?
Sure. Chip Rossi, President of the Bank of America here in Delaware. Delawarean, born and raised here, a graduate of William Penn High School locally. My wife and 2 girls still live here. Obviously, my wife does, but 2 girls are still here locally as well. But I've been with Bank of America for nearly 40 years. Started right out of high school through MBNA, and it's been just a wonderful, wonderful opportunity at Bank of America here.
What was your first position there?
My first position was in collection on the phone. Working part-time.
That's funny, Chip. My first job was as a collector for a finance company.
Now, were you going door to door?
No, I had, it was a construction company, manufacturer, finance company, and so there was 2 of us, and one of us had it was all paper, so we had a card for each customer. One of us was A to L, one was M to Z, and every day we sat right across, and we just called every single customer to check in on their payments and what was going on. It was the best training experience ever had.
Character building.
It's so funny. I mean, I remember we had blue cards, alphabetically, same thing. You'd go into your file. All right. Times have changed.
You learned
a
lot about people, and the times clearly have changed. But you learned a lot from that experience, for sure.
Speaking of changing times, what a beautiful unplanned segue into today's episode. But the Trends Shaping Delaware's Future report, I just want to read some information so that we can kind of just set up this conversation. Delaware's population is growing, but largely driven by an aging demographic. And since 2006, residents 65 and older have surged by 92%, while growth for prime working age individuals has only increased by 13.2%. Now, on top of that, fertility rates remain below replacement levels, which is a nationwide trend, and labor force participation in Delaware has declined in the last 5 years. Now, Delaware benefits from positive domestic and international migration. Actually, we're the only state in our region to have maintained a positive domestic migration rate over the past 4 years. But despite that, we still have workforce challenges. So with all of that, as companies who work with a lot of businesses in the state, you're also employers. How do you react to this information and the fact that we're the 6th oldest state with an aging population and declined labor force participation? That was a lot of build up, but
Yeah,
take it away, Rodger.
So I'll start. I would say I'm a big believer on focusing on the positives. And when you look at all that information, I think most of that you should take away as a positive. There's so many states where populations are contracting, industry is contracting, there's not a coordinated business effort in the state. And so I think we have a lot of strengths. And that's why as WSFS has grown, we've continued to maintain our headquarters here. It's one of our largest markets, and we think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for growth. We just have to tailor it for the growth that we're seeing and where we're seeing it, and take advantage of some of those opportunities. So even something like the aging population, there's ways to leverage the aging population even in your workforce. And we're seeing it, I'm sure Chip will say the same thing, we're seeing people who are looking to move into that next phase of their career but don't want to fully retire. So we're using job sharing, we have consulting arrangements, knowledge transfer is going on, leveraging folks like that. Because we have offices up and down the state, we can accommodate people wherever they live, and it's not working remotely. They're coming into an office because most of the value that's coming from those arrangements is having other people learn from those folks. So I just use that as one example of how you can use some of the changing demographics to your advantage. We have this great influx of people who come to Delaware from all over the eastern seaboard. We need to leverage that, even more. And I think we have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I think just adding on to Rodger's observations is one. I mean, Delaware, I think fifth or sixth fastest growing state.
Yes.
Which is terrific, quite frankly, for those of us that are here. But if you think about just the population and the growth that we're experiencing in those, just think about the experience that those people have from that standpoint. So the reality of it is that. It's a good thing to have that growth. And I have extreme confidence in businesses. I mean, you think about our country. We were talking about blue cards earlier and just how technology has supported change from there. I really believe that's going to happen here. So if you think about this, that you've got an aging workforce here, think about the talent and experience that they have and what they can share with folks that are part of your company today. Think about AI, and you think about just maybe the makeup of those introducing or re-entering or entering the workforce. How AI is going to change what work looks like for people. So, from that standpoint, I have extreme confidence that businesses will continue to innovate to create opportunities for the population that you have within your state. And I do think that the population that we have becomes a great opportunity for all of us.
Rodger shared an example of some of the things that WSFS is doing in response to sort of this changing demographic. What is Bank of America doing?
Yeah, I think that Rodger probably would tell you a number of things. Like when you think about it, one, I think this is a great benefit because it's opportunity for all. If you think about your workforce as a company, you want your workforce to reflect the community that you're a part of. Okay, so that's number one. Age, ethnicity, the transition of people coming to the state of Delaware from out of the country, that creates opportunity, right? So that's number one. Number two, just think about their experiences as well, right? That diversity of thought allows for you to do things differently from a business standpoint. So that's number one. Number two is then think about just workplace flexibility based on the job. Maybe there's some flexibility working from home for a number of days, depending on the job. Some jobs you're going to have to be in the office every day, but workplace flexibility is important. And then just alignment of skill sets. So as jobs change and maybe a job goes away, you've got talent. You've got somebody that's vested in the company. Realign those, redeploy that individual to do something different in the company. I could tell you just in the area I'm working with, there have been a couple thousand people that are doing something different today than what they were doing 2 years ago.
Yeah, I would add into that. I think both Chip and I got into banking in the 80s. I'm not exactly sure what Bank of America had, but when I got started, it was an entree through a formal training program, a very structured 2-year program. This was going way back to, it was at the Philadelphia National Bank at that time, which is now part of Wells Fargo. But there was just 75, 100 people constantly going through the company. And most of what we learned was by sitting next to other people who had done it. Older people, experienced people, learning the skills of whatever area of the bank that they were in. And that really produced a generation of bankers, in this region. And I know more broadly, over time, cost pressures, consolidation, other things have really, impacted companies' abilities to provide those programs. But what I've been seeing is, and we're doing some of this, is those are starting to get reborn, because the best way to train your next generation is to leverage some of the folks who have been around a long period of time. And what a waste it would be if we just had people retire
Of course,
and not pass that information. So we've tried to replicate something on a much smaller scale, and a lot of the work that is done by those teams is leveraging the opportunity to work with people who have been doing it for a long period of time. We actually have a sort of like a marketing program around that called Passing the Baton. And it's, so we can make people across the company aware of that. And it's been really successful. So again, you're taking that opportunity to leverage the strength that we have, recognize things are changing quickly, but the way to learn our business, because our business is very much a people business. For as much technology as we have, and as much of our customers use technology and interface with us, it's all about people. And the best way to learn those skills is to work with somebody who's been doing it for a long period of time.
Well, question. So I think you kind of described in the 80s a very direct and clear outlined path for people, but now to your point, people are not just moving up, but they're laterally moving or reinventing themselves even within a company. These training programs that you're talking about, these internal programs where people can learn from each other, does it take into account for that?
Sure. So part of what we're doing is we're giving those folks exposure to the whole entire company.
So they're learning from everyone.
They're learning from everybody. They're doing their primary work in one area, but then we cycle through, other subject matter experts to give them, more exposure to what goes on in marketing, in finance, in technology, in compliance, all those things that are part of our business. And so I think they gain a deeper appreciation. And we've had many people who started out on one career path because of that exposure, said, hey, I'm really interested in doing that, and then ended up posting for a job and, stayed in that area.
Yeah, I think that experience matters. If you think about it, if you go do something different in the company that you're in today, just think about this. You go and you do it well, and then you move on, and you're there for some time, and you show that you're able to kind of work through different cycles. You go do something differently. That experience matters, and along the way, you're building your brand. And along the way, you're developing relationships with people inside the company that are perhaps at the table when opportunities present themselves, and that opportunity could be for you based on the fact that you have different experiences, and based on those opportunities that you were presented with, if you've done well, people are going to support you from that standpoint.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great recipe for retention.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I think it's critically important that you lean in as much as you can on career development and opportunity. I find that most folks that are just getting started in their career are very anxious to learn, but they also want to be connected to something bigger. What are they doing? How is that connected to something bigger? And the best way to do that is to invest in opportunities to learn more about the company, make more connections, talk to our leaders, see the impacts that we're making in the community, because then that gives them a sense of, hey, I understand what I do today, how that fits into something bigger, and that's meaningful to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Purpose
is absolutely important.
So we talked about age in the workforce, but one of the other big things that I pulled out of the report that I found extremely interesting, that in Delaware, 1 in 7 workers are foreign-born. And I'm just curious, do you see that in your workforces? Are you looking to attract people that are outside of Delaware in that way?
Yeah, I would say that that trend 1 in 7 sounds, somewhat staggering, but the reality of it is it's pretty consistent across the United States, that type of growth. And I go back to one of the things that we talked about just a few minutes ago, which is opportunity for all. If you think about a company, you want your company to look like the community that you serve every day. And quite frankly, to reach the best that you can be, you want diversity of thought. Diversity of thought comes from many different venues, experience levels, backgrounds, right? Ethnicity. So all of those things help to shape your company. And by the way, having those people at the table as you're making decisions is critically important, because you get very different perspectives that perhaps, if you had a table of all white males, it might look a little differently if you bring some women, you bring some diversity of thought, maybe different age groups as well, people of color, and you just get a different perspective that leads hopefully to a better outcome.
Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%. And I really would emphasize the age diversity. I think sometimes we get too over-indexed into ethnic diversity or gender. Those are all very important and very unique, and they add a lot of value. But in the connected world that we live in, I just can't tell you how many times I sit in a meeting and we'll be talking about something, and then somebody in their 30s brings up a perspective that I would have never even thought of. And so there's incredible value in having age diversity, in addition to the other areas of diversity that I talked about. So I think this is another thing where sometimes you get too focused on particular data points, like the 1 in 7. Clearly, we are all working to do exactly what Chip said. We want to reflect the communities that we serve, but I also think you have to lean in really hard to have age diversity and age perspective, because people in their 30s just look at the world differently than people in their 60s. And we need to be, learning from that much more than when I was in my 30s, which was you were training, you were learning, but you were kind of like over there doing your thing. Now I think it's really important, that we have those folks have a seat at the table.
I love that as someone in my 30s. I feel like I spent a lot of time at the chamber here just listening, and which is so important, but I feel now this change in that people are more willing to hear young people's perspectives, where a decade ago I didn't feel that. So thanks for saying that, Rodger. Okay, so I know that you are both doing a great job making sure that we do this in a positive light, and I don't mean to be the doomsday person the way I'm framing my questions, but the fact is that there are more people exiting the workforce than entering. And I'm curious, is what can we be doing as employers or as a state from maybe a policy perspective, that can properly deal with that piece of knowledge?
I go back to innovation from my perspective. It's one, just acknowledging what's happening, and once you acknowledge, okay, this is what's happening, then it becomes, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? Well, control what you can control. And the reality of it is, I think in this case, my perspective is technology can be your friend. And the reality of it is that there are a number of things that we can do with technology that will allow people to do their job in perhaps a more efficient and effective manner, which may mean some things that are done today by people aren't done tomorrow by people. But I also think that as you're thinking about that, and as we're all thinking about that, there are things that customers and clients want as well, where they can do what they want when they want it at any time. And so I think that creates opportunity as well from that standpoint. So I think, leveraging technology to help address that challenge, I think, is important. But I do think the other thing is, look, we've got a lot to offer here in the state of Delaware. We see that by people that are coming to the state, and our growth rate, fifth or sixth fastest over the last 10 years, is pretty impressive. And the reality of it is that that's a strength of ours, and we should take advantage of that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I just would add two things. One is, I think it's important that we're tracking this data by the state, but I also think we need to continue to think more regionally.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we're in a region in the country, it's one of the best regions there it exists from an economic and a demographic perspective, and we should leverage that. And I think we're starting to see some of that, that progress in small ways, with what the Delaware Prosperity Partnership's doing around economic development and other things. So I think you can leverage what's going on regionally, which can help offset some of those trends. That being said, those trends are real, and they exist beyond the borders of Delaware. And I think we all see what's coming at us from a technology standpoint, particularly AI and other things, but none of us really knows how it's going to play out, including the people who are generating, these AI models and all those stuff. And so what we're trying to do for a company of our size is let's just acknowledge it and start talking to people about this is what's happening. This is why this is good for WSFS. This is why it can be good for you, and it can be good for our clients because it will help us grow and serve their needs. We don't know how it's going to play out, but this fear that I think people have that this is going to take my job, I think is really unfounded, exactly for the reason that you said. The demographics will help, the formation of some of these things to offset the fact that our population is changing. Going all the way back, as was pointed out in your report around birth rates. This is a long-term trend. This is, to me, is again one of those things of looking at the positive. This is like fantastic that this technology is coming around now because it's going to help us deal with these long-term trends.
Well said.
And the best way to deal with it is just be honest with people and say, we don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but here's the data and here's the facts. We need this if we're going to continue to thrive.
Yeah, and kudos to the chamber with bringing that information to light and having this discussion. I think the other piece too, Rodger, right, is that we're talking about our workforce, but also just think about, higher ed, whether that's high school, whether that's, community colleges or our universities that we have here. The education that people are receiving probably is going to look a little different.
Oh, yeah.
More practical, experiential type of training. And I'm sure all of those institutions are thinking about things differently as they're thinking about it. So.
And I'm sure, Chip, you see this. The one thing I hear when I'm out talking to our business clients is the need for skilled labor.
Yep.
The ability to do things, electricians, welder, you just can go through the whole list. There's certain parts of what they do which can be enhanced via technology, but at the end of the day, you need people to do those things. And so this transformation from, in the education system into leaning into building more of those skills, especially now as, you see the economy shifting and maybe doing more here than we've done globally in the past. I think that's going to be a huge demand that's already there for workers of that type who can earn a great living. And I think going back, I'm not the Delaware historian that Chip is, but if you go back to when, Delaware was, thriving, that was a big part, of the economy. And some of that changed because of, the automotive industry, chemical and all that. Yeah. But it's coming back, and it's a great opportunity.
Yeah. And I think, for us, and for companies here, we have a responsibility to continue to support those organizations that are training those people. Yeah. And so, as you think about, not only do we serve customers and clients, but we need to support the community from that standpoint to create opportunities for those people to get, skilled labor, develop those skills so that they can go ahead and support the community going forward. Because we all know that, a thriving business is really connected to a thriving community. And so we have an obligation to support the community as well in that way.
I want to give you both the opportunity. So, I had my list of questions in reaction to this report, but I did give it both to you, give it to you both in advance. Was there anything that struck you that you'd love to just talk about?
What I would, from my perspective, I mean, seeing it all in one place was really good. And seeing it from a Delaware perspective, relative to what's happening across the nation was good as well. But I kind of go back to where Rodger started, which is, look, with anything that's shifting, there's opportunity that's created. But I think the first thing you have to do is acknowledge that things are changing. And so from my perspective, that's the piece that I thought about as I was looking at this. Now, look, I still think one of the big challenges we have, and it's across the nation, is affordable housing. I think about my kids and, what are they going to do from a housing standpoint? And I'm sure that's something that is something that's really important for, families and young people across our community. But that's something that really just continued to reinforce a real need, not only here, but across our country.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Skip. I thought what was really excellent about the report is it not only gave the demographic statistics and the workforce statistics, it outlined the handful of things like affordable housing that we really need to work on. And, there's some of that work, whether it's affordable housing or business regulation or public-private partnerships, obviously technology and AI. There's a lot of that stuff that the business community can really take the lead on, but there's certain parts of that we really need to have the right partnerships, particularly in state government, to make sure that we are advocating and helping the folks in the state government to really understand what allows us to drive growth, what gives us the opportunity to hire more people or to invest in another facility. And that to me was the best part of it. I mean, it was crystal clear. You just read those 5 or 6 things, and here's the roadmap. Now it's up to us in the business community to work with our elected officials. Where should we lean in? Where should you lean in? Where do we have to work together? And that's one of the beauties of being in Delaware. It's not a large group. You can get all the right people together very quickly. And so I thought the document was excellent and really provides a roadmap for us in the business community to really engage to make sure we're leveraging those points.
Yeah, thank you both for saying that. That was the entire reason we commissioned it. All in one place, we need to know and understand, as I said at the beginning of this episode, who we've been and who we are right now, so that we can help encourage us to keep going in positive directions. So knowing our strengths, knowing our challenges, knowing how to nurture growth and fix problems is really important, because you do have to take a look back at what you've been and who you are. So I'm glad that was the reaction that you got from the report. It is a complicated equation. There are a lot of factors that go into economic growth and prosperity for Delawareans. So many factors like tax policy, and you mentioned affordable housing, education, there's infrastructure, all these things that we need to pay attention to and work on, and then contrastly make sure that we're looking at our fiscal stability and crime rates and just all of it. And all of it together creates this great place to live, work, and play.
Yeah, I mean, your point, together we are better.
Yes.
And, to Rodger's point, not only the business community, but working together with the public sector to help address some of the challenges that we have in front of us.
So before we wrap, I do want to switch over to our Convo Connections. I'm going to give you both the opportunity to give a shout out to a person or a company here in the first state that you think deserves a little love. Chip, I'll let you go first.
I'm going to go first. And you're going to ask, I'm not doing one, by the way.
Okay.
I'm not going to, I've got 3 that I'm just going to hit real quick.
I'll give you mine, so that way you can just go for it.
Because I think it goes along these themes.
Go
One, Tony Allen and the team at Delaware State University. A lot of Delawareans going to Delaware State University, which is great. And doing a wonderful job there. 2, Logan Herring, with you think about affordable housing and changing a community, just doing a wonderful job.
We had him on an earlier episode
yeah.
about affordable housing.
And then I just, this last week, Bud Friel. Bud with the land bank and the work that he's doing there.
Yeah.
You know, it's at Lower Hilltop. I mean, just terrific work from that standpoint, and thrilled to be a part of that. And the reality of it is that in all of those things, it's a journey, and you just have to keep at it day after day, just one step in front of the other, and they're doing great work.
Yeah, those are 3 really good problem solvers.
Yes.
Rodger?
So I'm going to focus on just one company and one individual, and it happens to be part of WSFS, if you can indulge me. I ran into the exact
Do
same
it.
challenge that Skip
Couldn't
did.
do
I was
it.
like, I couldn't figure out one, and I was like, I'm not going to do 3 because then it'll be 5. But as many people in the state know, WSFS was founded in 1832 by a gentleman by the name of Willard Hall. He actually is buried in the Wilmington and Brandywine Cemetery,
Okay.
just as you go outside of town.
Yeah.
Even though it was founded and opened for business in February of 1832, technically they put the bank together the prior year on October 1st. So on October 1st, we call that Founders Day. We've been celebrating that for a while. Several years ago, one of our people in our community, one of our leaders in our community strategy group, Vernita Dorsey, who's the name I'm going to call out, came up with the idea to take our volunteer efforts to another level. And so we take WSFS to the Community Day, where we close the bank for an afternoon. And this year it's going to be on October 1st. So literally hundreds of people from WSFS will be doing things in various parts of the state, helping those organizations make a difference.
That's really amazing.
And it's an amazing event. It happens throughout our entire footprint. It's really gratifying to see that our customers and our clients appreciate that and understand it, because we publicize it. It's only half a day, but the retail offices aren't open. All of our other offices aren't open. And it's just something really special to be part of. And it was Vernita's idea to come up with the Take WSFS to the Community Day. And so I wanted to acknowledge her and give that little history of the company to tie it all together.
Yeah,
Terrific
I love
woman.
that.
Does great work.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know you guys did that. That's very cool.
Really neat.
It's all Vernita.
Yeah.
I am not going to give a shout out today because I don't think I can top either of those. But if anyone wanted to get in touch with either of you, Chip, how can they get a hold of you?
chip.rossi@bofa.com.
Same.
Rodger?
R. Levenson, Levenson, all one word, at WSFSbank.com.
Awesome. If anyone has questions, suggestions for future episode topics, or wants to get in touch with me or any of my colleagues at the State Chamber, our contact information can be found at dscc.com. We're also on social media: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. Thank you both so much for joining me today. I really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, and thanks for all that you do at the Chamber.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Delaware Deep Dive, brought to you by the Delaware State Chamber of Commerce. Before we sign off, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen. I know podcast hosts say this all the time, but your support is invaluable, and it helps other listeners easily find us. I'm your host, Kelly Basil. We'll see you soon.